welcome to my channel. Today we're going to work on knitting this awesome 1950s style vintage Santa Claus stocking. I love it. It's been so fantastic for me and my family. The tradition with these started with my dad when he was a little boy and my great-grandma making one for him, and now the whole family has them. And it's so fun at Christmas time to see these all hung across the banister. We will cover everything from top to bottom you'll need to make this. On my Etsy channel, you will be able to find the step-by-step written out directions and a chart. So let's get going. The materials you'll need for this project are worsted weight yarns. I've got red, black, white, peach, and green. I did in size 4. You can do different colors for the skin and the eyes if you would like. I found this Angora yarn on Amazon. I also used a circular knitting needle from Chiagu. For this project, you can use double pointed needles as well. I have 4 jingle bells, a 4mm crochet hook. I used my double pointing knitting needles in place of holders, but if you have holders, all the more power to you. I have a yarn needle, and then you will also, last but not least, need the directions from the Etsy site I have listed below, along with the chart.
All right. So to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to give ourselves a nice long tail in red. We're starting at the very top of the stocking, so we're going to be doing that ribbing. And I know it's a little intimidating at first, but it can take a little bit to get used to. So once we give ourselves quite a fair length, we're going to pinch it. I'm right-handed, so I do this right-handed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my left hand, put my thumb and my pointer between it, and create a triangle. So I'm then going to take my needle I'm going to be working with. I start from the top, push down, come to this thread that comes from under my thumb, up through the window, and we're going to twist all the way over to the thread at the top of my pointer finger. Go under it and bring it back and push it through this window. And we're gonna let that loop slip off our thumb. Give it a yank a little bit, and you can see that I have now 2 stitches cast on. So because it's ribbed, it's 2 purl and 2 knit, so we're going to continue that trend. So we're gonna come around, since we got 2 of those, gonna pick up this under stitch, come through the top, around, and I put my finger down just so I don't lose that stitch around the top of that, and we're going to go back through this window on our pointer, let it come off our pointer, and slip it up. So you can now see we've got 3, so we got 2 with the starting cast on, but from here on out it's all gonna just be 1. So we're gonna do the same thing. So we have 2 of these, so it's come under, over, through the window, put our pointer finger down, get the top one, and go back through that window. And you can see the stitches right there. We're gonna let go with our pointer. We're going to tighten that up. So you can see now we've got 2 of each. We're going to come back to our thumb. So we're going to go under, through the window, come up to the top of the pointer, and back through the window. And this might take a little bit of practice at first to get the hang of it, and there's also some other tutorials that may have a little bit different angle than what I show, but here we are again. So under both threads, through that window at the thumb, come grab the top pointer, and it can cause a problem if you try to come through. See how it's crossed? We want to uncross it. We don't want to go through the cross, see that? And let go. Yeah, if it's crossed, it will give you some problems. So here we go for the other one. So we're gonna come around under both, through the window, and see when I put my finger down, also it gets rid of the cross for this other side as well. Catch that from the thumb and let go with the pointer. So I did lose count, so what I do is I count out the stitches, 2, 4, 6. Okay, so I need one more on my pointer. So here we go, and under both, through the window, point my pointer finger down to get rid of the cross, catch the top of the thumb, and back through that little window I created. Now back to the thumb, so around both, through the window, catch the top of the pointer, get it so it's no longer, you can see it's no longer twisted. If I were to just push that down, let go of the thumb, voila. And with the yarn I'm using this this acrylic, you can kind of tell what stitches are which, so you can see that there's a difference in the style between the pearls and the knits. So you can see the knits right here where my finger is. They're not looking as undone as these two. You can see the texture difference, and also you can see right here where it's got that little bulb, and then these two don't. All right, so we need another knit. So here's our knit. And back to the purl for the cast on. So remember, it's under both, through the window, point your pointer finger down, catch that top thread, and through that window that you can see is not crossed with my pointer finger. So we're gonna do that again, and we're gonna do this for 61, or no, this is, let me see. I think this is a row of 60 stitches. Yep, 60 stitches. So you're gonna have to make sure you have cast on 60 of these, and I will meet you back here when I have my whole first row done. All right, you can see that I now have cast on 60 stitches. It's a combination of purl and knit. So I started with a casting on knit, and I ended with a purl. So when I flip the work on the back side, that is going to be a knit stitch. This side's a purl because it's the bumpy side, and then this side's going to be the chevron. So we turn our work, make sure that we have the stitches down below. And you don't have to work with circular knitting needles, but I really like it because it can't slide off the bottom. Gonna inch this to the edge. Let's make sure I don't use the tail. And we're going to start knitting. So I'm going to get in this stitch. So a knit is going to come behind, so I find this right here. Oops, it's gonna slide off. So get that stitch, you can see the meat of it there, gonna come up the back. We're going to grab the, not the tail, but the yarn that's coming from our main source, and we're going to come from behind and in between these two needles, and you're going to get it onto that needle. There it is. And we're gonna do 2. We're following that pattern of 2 and 2, so you're doing 2 knits, and then because we're switching to purl, it's super important that this comes between the needles. If you don't, it's gonna throw it off, and it's gonna have some crazy looking top instead of this nice singles. It'll have like a weird double. So now we're gonna come to the front for the purl, come around, so right there, and there's one purl. Slide it down. We're going to do another purl up and over. Now we're back to knit because we've done the 2, And if you forget, you're talking and you lose track of what you're doing, you can look and see where you've been. So you're like, okay, I can see that these two are pearls. You see that bump that they've got. And if you notice this knit one, it doesn't have that bump. So it's okay, I need to do two knits. So up and over. There's that one. 1, 2. Now pull between the front, between the 2 needles, because we're now going to purl. So purl is in front and knits in the back. So here we go. We're going to knit these 2, or not knit, sorry, purl. 1, 2. And to check your work, you can see that these all have just beautiful singles on the top. And we're gonna keep going. Oh yeah, what did I do? Oh, you can see the 2 bumps. You can see the two knits and then the 2 purls. So we're now on knit. So, all right. So we have now completed the 8 rows. So you can see how nice and stretchy that is. The beautiful ribbing comes all the way down. So I've gotten to the very last stitch on my needle and it's calling for an increase. So currently we only have 60 stitches and we need to go up to 61. So we're going to do a purl in the front, wrap around, pull it through, and then we're going to come on this back loop that's on this needle. We're going to come up through that and purl over that and pull it through and let go. And you can now see that we just added from that 1, where it was 1 on the needle, we now have 2. So you can double check and count all of your stitches and make sure that you have 61. So moving forward, we're going to turn our work just like so. You're going to cut this. I've already cut this line. So cut it and leave a generous amount because we're going to be weaving it through the sock in the very end just to make sure it holds fast and doesn't let this stitch slip. So I left about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I may have overdone it a little bit. You could probably get away with about 5 inches. But we're now going to add in the white. So what we're going to do is we are going to give it, I really like these long tails, so 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5. I like 5. So I'm going to come up, hold this tail that we just cut, pinch it, come up, we're going to do a knit row. We're starting on a knit row. So got that dangly cut end for the white, and you're going to drape it between the needles coming forward, and we're going to knit. And it's okay if it's a little loose. We'll pull on it in a minute. Knit a couple, grab that white tail. So we'll get about 3 in. Just because I feel like after you get 3, that white's going to hang in there pretty good. So pull these tails, you can tighten it up so you can see that that's no longer loose. Pull that white one, and then you're going to continue down this first row. Oops, not that one. We're going to continue to follow the directions. So for the next little while, we're going to be doing this. So we're going to knit 16 rows. So it's going to be a combination of knitting and purling when we have to turn our work. So we're going to knit. We're not going to do this ribbing. We're just going to knit now. Knit straight across to the very end. Okay, I have now completed my first knit row. What I'm going to do is this is going to be all the way until we get to about the candy cane. We're going to continue to just sit and turn the whole work back and forth, knitting and purling. So now we're gonna do a whole entire row of purling. So we're gonna come in through here and we're going to purl. So I'll let you do this on your own and we'll meet back at that row. We're gonna add that green in. I've now finished my 16 rows. I ended on a purl stitch, so when I go back this way, it's going to be a knit stitch. So this is where the very peaks of the green are going to be. They're going to be about in this area where they come to a point and it's going to divide everything. So I don't really want to have to carry my white yarn and my green yarn across these big gaps that you'll notice in the pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, when it's time for the green yarn, is I will take one end of the green yarn and have it be one point, and then I'll have the other end of the yarn that's undone, and that's going to be part of the other point. So it's pulling from this yarn at two different points so that I don't have to carry that one yarn all the way across. Otherwise you're going to have this big, long, loose looking yarn that will look something like this, or you'll have to weave it through all of the little stitches, and sometimes I find when it stretches it will show through a little something like this, and I really don't enjoy that look, so I start individual new ones. I'm going to do the same for the white as well, so I'm not having to carry the white all the way across the green. So what I'll do is I'll pull a lot of white out, and that's up to you. If you want to, you can look up how to carry the yarn across through your stitches. This is just the method that I prefer. So I'll pull a ton of white out, and that's going to stay on this side of the green triangle. Then I'll have a green thread that does the triangle. I'll have a white chunk that's in the middle. And then at the very end, I'll have another white chunk. So I will have a total, with the way I'm doing it, of one, two, 3 whites and 2 greens. So a total of 5 things of yarn coming out. And I'm going to continue to work the white all the way down till the white comes to a V. And then I will stop using it, and eventually it will just be the green, and we will be working on the Santa Claus hat. Something to keep in mind is that in that pattern it does have gradual decreases starting about the time of the Santa Claus, where you're going to go from 2 to on this end and this end to 1. So I'll show you a little bit of how I do it. Also, as you go and you switch between the green and the white, you have to make sure you twist them together. If you don't, you're going to get some serious gapping in between in your pattern. Stuff that's about the size of my pinky that I could wiggle through, and it just doesn't pull nice like this. So I've done 14 stitches, and there's supposed to be 15, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tail end of this little mountain of green that I'm going to do, and I'm going to kind of dangle it in here so it's just laying like this on the back side and over, so that when I do another white stitch, you'll see here in a minute, even though I'm not starting my green just quite yet, it's going to be holding that green in place, so it's going to give that nice bridged look. So I've got, let's see here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, and now it's time for the green. So we're going to take our green and create a green stitch, and look at that, it's got some nice tension on it. And we're not going to start breaking apart our yarn just yet. So this is where we're going to do the crossing. And I found if I don't do this, if I were to just go under the green like this, it's not going to tie it in, because it's going to be pulling up and out. So if we do this, when we do our next round, it's going to be twisting into it. So over the green like this on the back side, and we're going to continue to knit across. And then when we hit the spot for the next green, we're going to do the exact same thing. So the last white stitch before, we're going to drape that other end. So for my case, because I'm going to go at both ends, I'm going to drape this across just like I did here. So you can see that end's tucked in there, and it looks nice. It ties it in. So we're going to do that on the next one, and then once we've completed this row, I will meet you guys back once we start on the other way. All right, so I've now completed my first row of adding in the green, and we're going to turn it. This is what it looks like on the back side. Got your tails, it's tucked in. So what I'm going to do is, again, this is all up to what you want to do. I'm going to give myself a large amount of this, because the thing is, as I was saying earlier, that I don't want to have to, every time I go down a row, have to carry my yarn, because this green section is going to get bigger. I don't want to have to carry my white yarn back and forth across these giant green sections. It gets pretty messy, and I really personally don't like it. Sometimes the white will show through, sometimes the green will show through for me, so I just don't prefer it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a large amount of white. Be very generous. I think that will do it, and I'm going to then cut this. Okay, you can see that we've now finished the white at the top. So if you look at the back, I've cut the remainder, so it's only a couple inches long, and we're going to feed that in at a later time. You don't need to tie any of these off. We'll deal with that at the very end. I've worked it to where now I'm only working with one green yarn that's tied to it. We were able to cut this other one because we don't need two going at the moment. We'll get multiple greens going again when we get to the Santa Claus, so that we're not having to carry that over as well. You can see right here how it's got this look to it. This is what was created when I would do the yarn over when I was dropping a thread, and it holds it really nice. There's no gapping, and it looks very flowy. If you have any gapping, it's because of you didn't get the loop over, or it could be you didn't pull it tighter. All right, we've now finished all the green up to the point where we're going to start the Santa Claus hat. So we are going to knit and then add in that red. Okay, so it's time to add in the red for the Santa hat. So the last green stitch before, I'm gonna dangle this piece of red over so it holds it in, just like that. Going to do one more green stitch. You can see it's holding it right back here. Give the green a little tug so it's nice and tight. And now I'm gonna start the red for the Santa Claus hat. Going to drape that green because we're dropping it over the red. And here we go. Okay, so now that we've got that, we're going to have to start our green for the green center. So before we do our last red stitch, we're going to take the end of the green and just dangle that through there. Do one more red stitch. Oh, did I miss it? Yeah, I missed it. There it is. One more red stitch. There we go. Pull things tight. And so I've got 1, 2, 4, 6, and off we go with the green. And we're going to keep doing, drop that, this trend where we're picking up and dropping off like this for the rest of the Santa. So something to add in is because with the Santa Claus, you're gonna have a lot of different colors going on. You're gonna have the red hat, you're gonna have the Angora beard, you're gonna have the yarn for the skin color, whatever route you decide to go with that. So you're gonna have a lot going on. So having all those different colors of yarns plus the green all attached is just really overwhelming. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did with my whites up here and my greens. So I'm gonna have multiple yarns going. So what I'm gonna do is I don't really need this big thing of yarn for the hat. So what I'm gonna do is give myself a pretty hefty amount of yarn for the hat. Cut it, it's just gonna help so I can keep everything untangled. And then I'm going to also do the same for the other side, is add in that yarn for the hat. I'm going to continue that to trend down. We're not going to cover every single color change. There's so many back and forth, but we will continue on and discuss how to carry certain colors across, because there will be large gaps, and also how to go down a stitch. All right, I've now made it in my pattern to the first stitch reduction. So I'll show you how we're gonna go about that. It's a little bit crazy now that we're adding in some more colors again. So to do the stitch reduction, it's going to be done on each side, and its frequency is every 10 rows for a while. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to do a knit, and I'm gonna come up for between 2 stitches right here. Going to do that and then pull through both stitches, and that is the reduction. So we're gonna do that on this end, and then when we get all the way down to this other end, we'll do the reduction on that as well moving forward, because there's so many different things in this stocking. I'm not going to be pointing these out. You'll just have to keep an eye on the pattern for those reductions. It's important to continue with these reductions because lower in the pattern it is working with less stitches, and it will throw off the heel. So you have to make sure that you're continuously doing those reductions. The Santa Claus beard, and I've chosen to go with this Angora mixture. It's nice and fuzzy, it's super soft, but if you notice that the yarn size is really quite small compared to what I've been using, and when I tried to do just a single strand, it really just, it looked very, very, very sad. So what I did is I've chosen to double it up. So I don't need to twist it together, I just need to double it, and I will show you how I'm gonna go about doing that. So I've got my 2 strands. So it's the stitch before I actually have to add it in. So I'm supposed to do 1 more red stitch, but I like to tie it in before I do it. I know there's a lot going on. You don't have to tie them in like this, but I just think that it makes it look a little bit nicer and a little more connected. So my last red stitch, so it's gonna grab onto it. You can see it's hanging onto it right there. Gonna do my one last red pearl. And I got that tied in there. So now we're going to move forward with our Angora. And some people I've seen, they just do the white that's up above. But it's a little bit more fragile, but you're gonna wanna make sure you're getting both of those thread or the yarns, 2, 3. And I'll show you what it looks like in a minute. This is what we're looking like. You were not gonna be able to see the double. Okay, so what we've so far done is we've started on the first Santa Claus white hair that's going to be under this hat, and we're moving over to the second one. So something to note is that our last pass that we made going this direction, we have the red over here, but we're going to now be working in his white hair this way. So we'll finish the white hair about right here, but we encounter the problem that we're going to have to do some of this red right here, and our red thread is all the way over here. So if you were to do it, it's going to create this big line, and I'll show you on my pattern as well. So the pattern as well, you're going to see that the red thread is right, or the red yarn is right here, but we're going to be doing the white all the way over. So you're going to have to see, to get the yarn from here to here, it's going to be a long strand. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to carry it. So about every, I'd say it's up to you, every second or third stitch in from when this is at is what we're going to, I'm going to keep this nice and tight, is when we'll actually carry it. So we're going to go like this. And we're going to do one, maybe one more. One more. And what we're going to do to carry it is we're going to just drape it over the yarn that we're working with, and we're going to do a couple more. So we're good, 2, 5. So you can see that now, instead of having that all the way over here, it's coming along with it. If you leave this super baggy, thinking, oh, well, this is going to stretch. If you leave it baggy like this, it's going to create loose stitches. So I like to kind of just space out the stitches so I make sure I have enough and it's not going to suck it really tight. But if you look on the front, it's not sucked tight. I think it's going to look just perfect with that amount on it. And we're going to keep going all the way across to when we need the red, which will be, let me double check, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Got 2, 4, 6. We got to do a couple more. And I'm going to, just because I think it would look better, even though it's not the third for mine, I'm going to drape it over. Oop. There we go. Got a little tangled there. Drape it over just so it pulls it in. I don't really like having big, long, baggy ones. Stretch out, give things a little tug. So we now got 2, 4, 6, 8. Now it's time to do the red. So pull this white over there. And because honestly, they're coming out of essentially the same spot, you don't really have to worry about that draping. So when you carry it and they both come out from that one stitch because you carried it the stitch over, you don't have to worry about that draping it over to twist it to tie it in, because it's going to tie in regardless. And I'll show you what it looks like when we do that. But this is something that you're going to have to do for one of the Santa Claus beards, where it goes all the way to the center. You have the skin color, and then you get all the way to the center, and it's got that one little square for the beard. And you really don't want to do it just draping all over. And the same with the skin when you have like the nose or the eye, and same with the eyes. So I'll scoot this down.
Yeah, see how it kind of ties in? It's not gapping right there. It's looking really, really, really nice. We'll fluff this up a little bit later, but that's what we've got going on, and we're going to continue this trend and then of twisting. For example, now we're shifting from red to green. We're dropping the red. Red goes over the green. Pick up the green. And we are going to continue to work in, and it's going to create those loops kind of like what we saw up when we were going between the white and the green. We want to see those loops. If you're not seeing them, there's a good chance you're going to get that gapping. So, and again, you do not have to worry about doing the drape overs to drop a yarn and switch to another one when you're doing the carry and you carried the yarn to the stitch before, like we just did with that beard. Because it's coming out of the same stitch, it's going to hold it together. You're not going to have that gapping. All right, so now we've worked our way down to starting the skin color that you're going to be adding in. I'm doing this this peach. So it's not quite time to add it in, but because I like to tie it in a little bit early, I just think it, as I said before, the other ones, it just kind of keeps that loose tail. So I drape it over. So dangly end, taking my white for the hair, dangly end, and we're gonna just drape it over so it catches it. Going to do my last white. Just gonna hang on to that. There we go. Give my white a little tug, give this a little tug, and then you can see on the back how it's now holding this in. So we're now going to work on the skin. So something to note is it's also got a mixture of the white hair mixed in with it. So I'm gonna go the skin one. And I am going to do 2. And then we're gonna grab our white that we were working with, wherever it went. And I kind of like to keep putting it like this, boop. So we're gonna do that. It doesn't matter if it goes under or over on that one. So there's the one white, and then we're going to switch back to the peach. And one more peach. And we're going to do, it is 2 more whites. And since it's in these tight quarters and it's not, you know, doing the, it's kind of continuing, it's not doing the start and stop like this, I'm not as worried about looping as much. You'll notice it kind of, it's all just carrying right through, so we're not getting that gapping we would over here. So I'll let you do the rest on your own. Something to keep note of is that when we come back, when we're coming back, you'll notice that it's just going to be this peach all the way over to here. So same thing as when we were up here. We're going to have to carry that white over with this. Since we've already covered that, we're not going to go over it again, but just make sure that when you come back this way, so you, once you've completed this row and then come back, you're going to make sure that you grab this and then carry that white over. And as for the nose and the lips, I do one longer strand. Looks like this is the one that I've got attached. So I'm gonna have that for here. And what I'm gonna do is it's gonna be the nose, and I don't want just one single stitch. I'm afraid that that will fall out. So this is just gonna hover around there because we're gonna do the mouth and just a couple rows down. Okay, so I've been working down my work and I have run out of one of the colors, which can happen. It's not that big of a deal. What I'm going to do is I want to continue
my work. So I've got this and I have my new yarn. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to tie a knot around this piece, slide it up so it's up against the base of my work, like so, and then tighten it. And I personally like to do another knot like so. It's gonna have some tails and we will deal with those a little bit later, but now I'm able to continue down my work. We just want to make sure this stays on the back side as we continue right along. And look at that, it stays right here. All right, it's coming right along. We are now all done with the green. Hooray, I've already gotten to the end and snipped it, leaving myself a big long tail that I so very much so love. So now we're going to add in the white. So we'll grab our white, give it a nice big long tail, get our other needle ready. Gonna come up and through because it's going to be a knit. So I'll do that one more time. We got our last loop that we did, that we've got on the needle, last stitch. We're gonna come up for a knit, and we're going to grab our white, give it a good couple inches. I'm a fan of, as you know by now, long. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take that little tail and we're gonna have it right here and then have it come between like this with the rest of the yarn where the yarn's connected. Going to come between these needles like that, and we are going to pull it on. Just got to be careful. If you're a little too aggressive, you'll pull your green all the way through. Give it a little tug. Yeah, it's going to be a little loose, and fidgeting with it right now isn't going to be able to help and improve that tension. I like to get a couple stitches on. There we go. So you can see it's a little bit on the loose side, not my thing. So we're gonna get these tails behind, give some tugs to both of them, and there we have it. We are ready to go. And this may remain loose, but it's okay. We'll get it in the end and tighten it up so that it has the same consistency as everything else. So onward to the candy cane. Okay, so now we are ready to add in the red for our candy canes. Hooray! So because I like to tie in my stuff a little bit early so it's not just kind of free dangling, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to drape this tail of the red candy cane here, and then you can see the white, it's gonna come over the white. So we're gonna tie it in. We're gonna do our very last white stitch. And then you can see right here that it is being held on the back. Great. So now it's time to sit and work in, oops, not the tail. We're gonna work in our red stitches for it. 2 and 3. And because we are not doing big chunks like we were up here, I'm not going to be cutting a whole bunch of different sections for the white. However, I will have 2 different sections for the red candy cane because I don't want to have to carry it that far across. So we're gonna just jump. Beautiful. So we're going to keep doing this all the way down. We're just going to come back and forth from our red and work it all the way down. So we're going to meet back when we get to the part where we actually have to separate this out so we can start working on the heel in the future videos. Okay, so now we are about halfway through our candy canes. It's looking fantastic. I love it. So just a few pointers. Now you'll notice that it's pretty close, but I still think it's a wise idea that when you do the yarn changes, if there's more than like 2, I do still twist it so that it grabs it, and you'll see that it's pretty seamless here because I've been doing that twisting, so you're not going to see any of those holes. If you're seeing the holes, again, it's not a hole like this. It's a hole that would be big enough to fit your finger through, and it's just like, gosh, it looks like I missed a stitch. So another couple pointers is there's some chunks where there's 3 stitches. When it's 2, I don't mind not carrying the thread. So from like this red stitch across these 2, I don't really care if I make sure I carry it. So needless to say, it's just I did these 2 red stitches and then I dropped the red yarn and then did these 2 white ones and then picked it up again, of course doing the twists as well. But for example, working this way, you've got 1 red and then 1, 2, 3 white. I don't like having that long of a distance with the red yarn just kind of free floating in the back. We're going to be stuffing lots of awesome goodies in these bags, and I do worry that, you know, sometimes if you have those big long strands that sometimes, you know, something might snag it or get caught, and I just would rather be safe than sorry. So with this is working across this way, when I hit this stitch right here, or you could even do it in this one, I would loop that red yarn over so it catches it, and it's called carrying, so I carried it across, so I'm not having that. Another pointer of something that I just realized is that, so when you're doing this, you'll notice that if we worked this way, we have this, we're going this way across, so I can't remember if it's this candy cane or this one, but you're working across, you hit your red. However, when you come back around, you're going to notice that there's no red stitches up here until you're quite a ways in. So it's, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, it's going to be 6 stitches. So make sure when you come back, again, I don't remember if it's this candy cane or this one, that you're carrying that thread, or you're carrying the yarn, sorry, the yarn across. So, all right, now we're about to move on to doing the heel. All right, so we are now to the point where we're working on the instep. So what I am doing here now is going to be slipping off certain stitches onto different needles or holders, just so that they can be worked on at a later time, and I can just focus on this section, the instep right here. So what I have done is I knit across all the way to right here. I stopped, and then I slipped these last 13 stitches. I just did a double point knitting needle, and what I did so that it wouldn't slip off is I put these little clear elastic hair bands on the ends. You can do rubber bands if you're doing just a knitting needle, and see, it's not going to slide off. I just didn't want to have to buy holders for this. So it's just going to sit there and hang out, and I will include the information about all of this below as well, so you can see that in the description. So now that I've done that, I'm to here, and instead of continuing on, which I can't because it's now slipped off, is I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to purl all the way back, and while doing purling, I'm still going to continue adding into the design for my candy canes. And then I'll get to the very last, probably about in this area, and instead of continuing all the way over, these are also going to be slipped off onto another knitting needle. So what I have done, let's see, here is these are what I was using. These little clear rubber bands are what I was using to wrap on the ends of these double point knitting needles. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you how I did it. And they're grippy. They kind of, I think, they remind me of like having a rubber band. You just want something that's gonna catch it and not let it slide off the tip. So you can see it's kind of bulky, and it sticks really well. I thought about putting tape on these, but I really, really, really don't want the tape residue on these because I think that it would ruin how well they slide. I really like this brand, so I really don't want to ruin them. And it's the Xiaogu, I believe is how you pronounce it, but they seem to be pretty awesome needles. That's also the same brand as my circular needles that I'm working on. All right, so I made it to the last 13 stitches, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, and we're going to, you've noticed I haven't purled them at all. I've only done this center check, so we're gonna slip these off onto this needle that I already made up with an elastic on only one end. So yep, just slide all of these guys off. And to make sure that they don't pop off at all, I'm going to take another one of my little elastics and pop it on. Try and wad it up pretty good. And sometimes they can still slide over these, but it's not as, you notice, common. So now our working area that we're going to continue on with is just this chunk. So yeah, we're going to leave those other two alone for a while. Yeah, they're going to get in the way, but we're just going to sit and work back and forth in the center section until it is then time to work on the heel. All right, so we have now finished the candy canes. It looks great. So this is what it looks like right now. You've got the two heel pieces, and we've now finished the insteps. So we're going to start working on these heel pieces. So since I'm working on a circular needle, I really want my circular needle out of this. So I'm going to pop this this instep onto a holder that I've already set up with a little rubber thing at the end. And also, just so you know what the back side of the candy cane looks like, it looks like this. Give you kind of an idea. We're dealing with quite a bit of loose string. Don't worry, we will get to that eventually. Just gonna take a minute to get to it. Okay, so what we are now going to do is we want to slip both of these sets of 13 stitches onto our circular needle, and we are now going to begin to work on the heel. And you're gonna go back and forth, knitting and purling until you reach the specified number of rows on the instructions. And then we will start working on turning that heel, and it is not as scary as it sounds. Okay, so here we are. So I have finished the instructions on doing the heel. This is what it's going to be looking at like right now. Got pretty much 2 flaps. So what I've done is I've started in on turning the heel. So I purled in 15, and now I'm going to purl 2 together. So what's going to happen for that is I'm going to slip my needle through 1 and get that second one. So you can see I've got 2 on there. It's going to be a little on the snug side, and catch both of those, and you're going to purl 1 after. There we go. So you should have 2, 4, 6, 8 on this needle right here. So you're going to turn your work, and now we're going to, for the row 2, what you're going to do is slip 1. So slipping 1 is I have not touched this one yet. So I've got the yarn is on this one. I'm going to slip it like this, just whoop, right off like that. And then I'm going to knit 5. All right, so we're going to be doing a passover. So the way that's done is we're going to do a slip 1 again. We're going to knit 1. So you can see that stitch that you slipped, it doesn't have as many stitches as these other ones. Going to stick our needle in that slip stitch, and what we're going to do is we're going to pull it over that knit that we just did. So you can see it's kind of, it gives a little crossed look right there. And then we're going to knit 1 more and turn. So 2, 4, 6, 8. So it's going to be even. Each time you turn, these are going to be about the same as one another. So we're going to turn it, and then we're going to, for row 3, we're going to slip 1. And they're going to, each of the knits and the purls, they're going to increase by 1. So this time instead of knitting, or I'm sorry, instead of doing 5, we're going to do a count of 6. So we're now going to purl 2 together again, get that under 2, purl that, and purl 1, 2, 4, 6 is on this side now, and turn. So as we turn, what we're going to do is we're going to do a slip 1 and a knit 7. And it also, you can see where you're coming to an end because you got a gap that's going on right here. So we are going to slip 1 and knit 1. And we're going to look for that slip. You can see it very clearly right here. And we're going to pull it over that one we just knit. Make sure you don't forget to make a knit after you do the passover. Knit, and 2, 4, 6. That's what we had on the other side. And give it a turn. So now we're going to purl 8. So if you notice on the pattern, the purls are even and the knits are odd numbers. And we're purling 8. right, and then we're going to purl 2 together. 1, 2, purl together, and purl 1. So we got 2, 4, and turn. Okay, so we're going to slip 1. We're going to knit to 9. And we're going to slip 1, knit 1, and we're going to pass it over. That slip goes right over that knit. Voila, and knit 1 and 2, 4. Great. We're still staying on count, keeping it nice and even. If you're finding that they're getting a little off on the sides, then you may have missed a slip or one of the purl togethers. So here we go. So it's time to purl. So we're going to slip 1, and we are going to purl right across. Right, got to the very end. You see that gap, so we're gonna purl together, and purl 1. So we got 2 now. We're gonna give it a turn. And let's just double check. So it's asking for 16 stitches, so we'll just double check. I'm pretty sure we keep going all the way to the end. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Yep, we still got a ways to go. So we are going to slip 1. Got to the very end. You see that gap, so we're gonna purl together. And purl 1. So we got 2 now. We're gonna give it a turn. And let's just double check. So it's asking for 16 stitches, so we'll just double check. I'm pretty sure we keep going all the way to the end. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Yep, we still got a ways to go, so we are going to slip 1. Was a little bit frustrating. All right, so we're going to go through and, oh, come on. purl 2 together, which leaves us with 1 left. If you are looking at this on your purl, great job, because you purl that very last one. And then you're going to give it a turn and you're going to knit. So this is what we got going on. You can see a little bit of a ridge here and a ridge right here. That's exactly what we want. All right, and then the final pass, we're going to come back and we are going to slip 1 and knit right across. All right, so here we are. We're going to slip this, and it's, you can see this gap right here. You know that this is the one. Slip it, knit, grab that slip stitch and slide it right on over that knit, and you got 1 left. We're gonna knit it. Ta-da! You have just turned your heel. Oh my goodness gracious. It looks so great. We're gonna have 16 stitches on this. Got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, and 16. Hooray! And now we're going to move on and start shaping the heel gusset. All right, so we are now going to need to pick up some stitches. So it's calling for 12 stitches right along here and to knit across these 16 stitches, and then do pick up 12 stitches down this side as well. So we're gonna have 1 continuous piece. So the thing is the stitch length this way, so across our stitches is a different length than what is here. So when we pick up our stitches along this side, we're not going to pick up and go in every single loop, because it's gonna make it look funny, because they're just not the same length. So if I were to knit for example, a square that's 8 across and 8 up, it's not going to be the same exact size. It won't be a perfect square. It's going to be a rectangle. So we need to compensate for that. So what I do is I go 3, I pick up 3 stitches, skip 1, pick up 3 stitches, skip 1, and I'm going to continue that trend. And you kind of have to almost eyeball it. So I'm going to try and start in this hole right here. You can see there's a stitch that crosses. And you don't want to go through 1 piece of yarn. You want to capture 2. Yeah, if you do 1, it's going to pull it funny, but you can see I've got 2 right here. Take a crochet hook. I think this is a USG 6/4 millimeter, and I'm going to loop it, and I'm going to use my crochet hook to pull it through. And I'm just going to continue to work through it. So it looks like there may be 1 right here. Oops. Wiggle that on in. That's the tail. Let's get... And I will go back through and I'll tighten this up around my needle when I get that chance. 1, 2, and here's 3. Now, there is a hole right here, but I'm going to skip it because I've got 3. I'm going to go for the next one and grab that one. 1, 2, and 3. So you can see there's a gap there, and that's definitely what we want. So the next one is right here, but I don't want to do that again. I'm going to skip it. Go 1, 2, 3. All right, so I got 9. I got 3 more to go. So skip the next hole and do 1 and 2 and 3. That puts us right under right here. So we've got all of these now on there. And we are going to take this yarn that we were just working across and pop it onto this needle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trade places with this crochet hook. Slip it right out. I don't really know if I need to do much adjusting because that fits pretty perfectly. Great. So I'm going to push my circular needle down and I'm going to knit right across the top. One. Great. Okay, so this is what we're looking at is I got this going on. All right, so what we're going to do is we're now going to turn our work. Oh, it's getting a little on the long side. And we are going to purl it. So kind of edge that on up. And we're going to purl all the way across, and then I will jump on for row 2. Okay, so I've just finished purling, and now I'm going to start on reducing the number of stitches that I've got on this. So it's just going to be pretty easy. It's repeating the same 2 rows. It's going to be purling, and then it's going to be a row of knitting where you're going to knit 2 together and also do the passover stitch that we just previously learned. So it's going to start with, you're going to knit 1. Oops. So knit 1, oops, wrong one. Sorry, it's moving a little slow there, a little on the tight side. Knit 1, slip 1, and then you're going to knit another one. And then we are going to take that slip stitch, just like we were previously, and we're going to pop it on over the most recent knit, and we are going to then knit all the way to the end. Okay, so we made it to the last 3 stitches, and we're going to knit 2 together, knit 1, and then we're going to turn our work. So we're going to get up under there, under 2 stitches, and knit those 2 together, and we're going to knit this one, and then we will turn our work. And we're going to continue that, going back and forth. So we did that row of, we did the passover stitch on one end, and then the other side is going to be the knit 2 together, and then we will do a purl row, back to doing it where we do a passover stitch, knit 2 together, purl row, and we're going to continue doing that cycle until we have a grand total of only 26 stitches left on this needle. So I will meet you back here when I have finished that. Okay, I now have the heel and the instep all on my circular needle. I have it so that I'm starting right here where everything left off for the heel to knit, across the instep, around, and right here. So right here is, I marked as center heel, so there's 13 stitches here, 13 stitches here. I also, for my ability to keep track of where the 13 heel stitches end and begin, I've got black pieces of yarn right here. So we will get all the way to here, we'll stop, and then we're going to start our red. So we're just going to continue for the specified number of rows on the directions for the number of red that we're going to do. Yeah, just tie it in right here and do that specified amount of red. All right, so I finished all of the red stitches I need to but 1. So you can see I moved up the marker for the center part of the heel to show where the row ends, and you see I've got 1 left. And now, since we're going to be starting a new color, I'm going to continue the trend that I've been doing through this whole video of we're going to dangle that piece in and have it tie in the stitch before it starts. So I've got my tail, it's a couple inches long, and what I'm going to do is drape it over my red. So I've got my tail of that over here and over the red. And by the way, the red, I already cut it, so if you saw that, it's okay. So we're going to work in 1 last red stitch with that green there. You can see there's that green, and it's grabbing it on that back side. All right. And now I'm gonna just slip that red stitch so it's part of the rest of them all the way over here. There. So now, if you look on the back side, we've got the green tied in, and this will be pulled back to here. Great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to continue to work around, but real quickly, just to show you where everything is at before I start working in my green, since it's all tied in, I'm going to show you, this is what it's looking like right now. Here's our stocking. It's still not stitched up the back, but we got our Santa Clauses. It's looking fantastic. We've got the red completely joined all the way around. Same with getting this done. This is joined, and it kind of zigzags all the way around. We will eventually get to sewing this side up, and all the way up the back. So on to knitting all of the green around, and then we will start decreasing. So I've just finished knitting the normal stockinette stitch around for several rows. And what we're going to do now is, first of all, I moved up the black pieces of yarn again so I can keep it separated between the heels and then the front section, because now we're going to be using where these black thread or these black pieces of yarn are for our decreases. So I'm at the center heel because that is where we start at. I'm going to pull this. So this is where we start doing our decreases. Okay, so we're just going to do the normal knit until the last 3 stitches prior to the black. And by the way, there should be 13 stitches between the black and this little peach centered one for the heel. 13 stitches for this side, 13 stitches for this side, and for the big front side under the candy cane, there will be 26 stitches. And that is important. Okay, so we can now see that this is right here. We got the last 3, so what we're going to do is now we are going to knit 2 together and knit 1 for this side right here, the needle, what is called needle 1. So we're going to come under the 2 stitches like this. I knit a little on the tight side. All right, so there's a decrease, and then of course end off this row with a knit. Now we're going to start on the next needle. So when you start on the needle, you're going to do a knit 1 because it's the first one right after that black. Knit 1, slip 1, and we are going to do a pass over. So we've got to do 1 more knit 1. So it's knit 1, slip over, and then knit another. We're going to take, remember how we find that slip stitch right here? We're going to find that slip stitch. And we're going to pull it over the one we just knit. All right, and then we're going to knit all the way across this front one till we find that black yarn, and we'll stop 3 stitches before we pass the black yarn so that we can do another decrease. Okay. All right, so we're on the last 2 of this needle, and for the last 2, we're going to knit 2 together, knit 1, and then keep on going and do the passover stitch at the beginning of the next needle. So still on that front needle, we're doing knit 2 together. So we're just going to alternate, knit 2 together, knit 1. Still before that black stitch, and knit 1. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the passover one. So we're now on the other side of the black yarn. So I'm going to knit 1, pass over 1, or I mean, sorry, slip 1, and then I'm going to knit. And then look for that slip stitch. It's right there. Gonna drop it over. And we're gonna keep on going. So we're going to pass, when we get to the center, we're going to do 1 round of knitting, and then we're going to go back to doing this round that I just did. So it's going to be decrease through a mixture of the knit 2 together and then the passover, and then it'll be a whole round of all the way around a knit, and then we'll do another round of doing the decreases. So make sure that when you're doing your decreases, that you're hitting both sides. So it's not just, I'll show you. Here we go. So now I've already done the decreases. So I did on this one, this was the first one, I did a knit 2 together here, then it was a passover here, and then as we worked our way around, it was a knit 2 together, a passover, and since there's 4, there's 2 knit 2s together and 2 passovers, we're going to do 1 full round all the way back to this center heel of just knitting, no decreasing. And then once we get to this, we'll start it all over again with doing the knit 2 together, the passover, knit 2 together, passover, and then another round. So I will meet you back here when we have got a total of 6 stitches between these 2 black ones in the front and a total of 6 stitches in the back where this heel is. All right, so we have now finished knitting. Oh my gosh! Thought the moment would never come, but it did. Hooray. So, this is where we're at. We still have this little opening. If you look, it's going to be a total of 12 stitches that are there. It only kind of looks funky because I've pulled it down on my circular knitting needle. All right, so we're gonna sew this bottom end up. So what I've done is I've cut my green yarn. I've given myself quite a bit of length because I'm going to be using this to weave in and out. You can see I've got 6 stitches on one needle, 6 stitches on another. Now I've tried to be able to get it in there, but I really struggle. It's a really tight fit. So I'm going to, yeah, it's just a little too tight. So I'm going to pull them off, and I'm going to just be so careful to not lose those stitches, but you can still see them there. And I'm going to work weaving back and forth, and then I'll eventually tighten them. But we want to hit these loops because if you don't, it's just all going to unravel. And there's that last one. Perfect. So what I'm going to do, you can see it's kind of a mess. I'm just going to go through and I'm going to work through, so I'm pulling it. And and getting all of it. I just didn't want any of those loops to drop. So I'm going to work it through, and we'll jump back when I've worked it through. So you're just gonna sit and pull little by little, work it all the way down this way and work it all the way back. Now that I've worked out all of the loose ends on the outside, I flipped it inside out, and I worry with how much gets shoved in my stockings about things coming loose. So I actually do a little small knot. And then what I'm going to do, and this is something that you're going to do for all of these loose threads, you're not going to knot them. They're not getting the stress that this bottom piece is. But I'm going to, on these stitches on the inside, take my yarn with my yarn needle, and I'm going to work them in. Yeah, we don't cut them super short. We left them long for a reason. We sit and we weave the tails in. Now, I don't do the full like 12 inches or anything crazy, but I definitely do between 3 and 4 inches depending on just how I feel about it. Some of them are a little bit longer, but I sit and do this. I try to keep within this color, because if you do it and weave like a green into a white per se, you know, it's gonna, there's a possibility of it showing. But I'm gonna weave this up. And I like weaving the toe in with that side seam. All right. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty good. You got like 1, 2, a little over 2 inches. Go a little more. And that's how far you do it is just up to you, but you can't really see it too much, but it's just woven in right there. I'm gonna snip off the extra. And we are done with the toe. Oh my gosh, it's gonna look so good. So that's our toe. It's all done. Looks gorgeous. So what we're gonna now do is we're going to work on sewing up the insides, and actually, you know what? We'll skip on the insides. We'll do that very last. Next, I would definitely recommend weaving all these in while it's still big, open, and flat, because it gets a little trickier when it comes time to do that, and also stitching the name in while it's still flat, and you have easier access than having in a tube, because it's a little harder to do the name. Okay, for time's sake, I'm just going to show you also how we're going to sew this up so it's no longer laid flat like this. Still would recommend tying up all these ends and weaving them in prior to doing this, but I will deal with that at a later time. If you do it this way, that works too. So we do need to stitch this up. So the way I like to do this is I like to make sure that things are gonna line up. So I start at like the green, and then I'll work my way up, and then I'll work my way down for this white. But we're going to, when you do it, you're not wanting to pick up one yarn, you're picking up this whole end stitch, I found is what looks best. So let's get in here. Yeah, you can see it's going through that whole stitch. And then we're gonna come over to this one right here and pull through. I gave myself plenty of green. And I knot this one. So I'm going to knot it, get it nice and snug. I knot it twice. And then I'm going to continue this trend. So I don't like to do the loop around. I found it kind of looks a little on the bulky side. So I'm trying to go as frequently as I can. You can see there's another, I got this stitch, there's another one right here. You can see very clearly, that window that's right here. I'm gonna go in through this, and I'm trying to make sure I line this up as much as possible with this other side so that it doesn't shift. And I do regularly check to make sure that it's not shifted and I don't have to redo it.
But I'm going to do that, and instead of coming up and over, I'm just going to go back through the next stitch on this side. And right in through there. And you can see it's going to create like this ridge. You're going to do that for all the way up to here, and stick with light colors, green for green, white for white, red for red. If you do a different color, when it stretches and pulls, when you get those Christmas goodies, you're going to have those colors poking through, and I personally am just a little nitpicky on my stuff. So I like to have it like that. When you get to the end, you will tie it off. So you'll go through, we're going to pretend we're at the end. Going to go through, and then when you go through, you're going to pull it tight. And I actually, for this one, I go over and then I have a loop that I will then tie through, but there's more than one way to skin a cat, so you can go however you want about this. So you're gonna do this method for this in green. Make sure that these line up when you do it. I'm regularly checking and pinching. You could even probably put pins, like sewing pins in it to hold it in place. Red for up here, and then make sure you don't forget to do these little slits right here and this guy, and then from there you can go through and remember the yarn that we did put on the toe. You can pull these yarns out. They were just a temporary placeholder, but then your stocking will look a little something like this. So I have sewn in the bells just using a piece of yarn. I thread it through and then tie it at these top points, and it's super duper duper cute, totally adorable. And then I'll show you what the back looks like. So you'll see the back, it slowly decreases and kind of gathers in a little bit, and that's because we're having those decreases that we did every 10 stitches down, every 10 rows, but it's gorgeous. I freaking love it. I'll show you what the inside looks like when all of the yarns are tied up. All right. So this is what it looks like on the inside. So when I'm doing the chain, when I end my yellow and my greens, I just sit and weave them around up and through this this color change. And same with like the Santa Clauses. I don't like to do any of the weaving of colors in the beard. It's really thin. It will show. I try to keep it in the peach, and I, as much as I can, work it to the outside of the Santa Claus face so that it's not showing as much. You can see what this candy cane looks like. This is what the back looks like on the inside. So you see that ridge as it's sewn up. And I'll also cover how to do this little loop. Super easy. And I'll show you how to stitch in some lettering. All right, so I'm working on adding in the name. So I started on the back side and I came up with my yarn and my needle. I came up through, I started coming up through here. And as I came up, I went down and around. So we'll do another one. We're working on adding in a T. So we're gonna come right up here, through here. And taking care to not pull too tight. We see there's a gap in that stockinette stitch. We're going to go through this gap, and you can see where the stitch is, and it kind of creates like a teardrop shape. Gonna make sure I don't want it to go through any yarns. I want it to just go through the whole, because I found it just doesn't quite move as easily when it intersects another yarn. Almost. Come on. Oh, this one's being a little on the stubborn side.
There we go. That time it did it. So there we go, and it'll slowly work down into our T. And I'm just doing it based on that included chart for letter sizing. You can see it's creating a nice little chevron pattern. And I don't just use one yarn, I actually will use several because I find that changing direction can be a little bit tricky. And I'm going to just keep going in that same pattern, and you might see some white showing through, but you can shift things around and get it to show the way you want. Okay, so we are now at the very end. We're putting on our finishing touches. We've got our name on. I love it. It's nice and chunky. So this loop, what I've done is I took long pieces of yarn and my needle, and I wove it down into this seam. The seam is pretty strong. I'd weave it down and then have it come back up, braid them together, and then I would weave that end down in and just made it nice and tight. It's pretty bulky, but it looks pretty awesome with it all done. Congratulations! Yeah, it wasn't so bad, right?
Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed that stocking that you made. Happy holidays. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Follow me on YouTube and also check out my Etsy store. I'll be coming online with some other projects that range from sewing, knitting, and crocheting. Bye!